It's July 8th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with President Yoon trip to the NATO Summit. President Yoon is off to Washington, D.C. later tonight to attend the NATO Summit, becoming the first South Korean leader to do so for 3 straight years. He'll be sending yet another strong warning to North Korea and Russia over their risky defense cooperation. The world's largest maritime drills, the Rim of the Pacific exercises, are in full swing with the armed forces of 29 countries in Hawaii. This year, South Korea is taking a leadership role in the 29th edition. France's left-wing alliance is projected to take the most seats in the French parliament to beat a surging far-right, with Macron's centrist alliance coming second. The 2024 NATO Summit kicks off in Washington, D.C. this week. President Yoon will be present for the 3rd straight year, using the global stage to slam Pyongyang and Moscow for their tightening military cooperation. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
For the 3rd year in a row, President Yoon will attend the NATO Summit, this year being held in Washington, D.C. The presidential office announced the trip on Friday, adding that Yoon will also stop off in Hawaii before the summit to visit the United States Indo-Pacific Command.
The summit's held in Washington, D.C., where the North Atlantic Treaty was signed on April 4, 1949, marking the founding of NATO, carries historical significance. Considering the importance of cooperation with the Indo-Pacific region, NATO has extended invitations to the IP4 nations, South Korea, Japan, Australia and New Zealand, for 3 consecutive years.
As for the brief itinerary, the president will leave Seoul on Monday night. Arriving in Hawaii on Monday, he will go straight to pay his respects at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, informally known as the Punch Bowl, where around 10,000 Korean War veterans and their family members have been laid to rest, along with servicemen and servicewomen from World War II and the Vietnam War. On Tuesday, he's set to visit the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, where he will be briefed by the commander regarding ongoing security issues in the region.
Since 2018, when the U.S. Pacific Command became the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, this is the first time for a South Korean president to visit the headquarters. The visit will showcase the strong solidarity of the ROK-US alliance and serve as an opportunity to enhance cooperation between the 2 countries for peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region.
President Yoon will arrive in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, where he will kick off his NATO-related engagements with bilateral talks with some members' leaders, including new entrants, Sweden and Finland, and the Czech Republic. On Thursday, he's expected to have a summit with the IP4 leaders. Also, after attending the NATO Summit itself, Yoon is set to give a speech at the NATO Public Forum before returning to Seoul. While the NATO members will address the prolonged war in Ukraine, the summit also comes against a backdrop of Russia and North Korea's strengthened military cooperation.
A strong message will be sent regarding the military cooperation between Russia and North Korea, and in response, there will be discussions on ways to strengthen cooperation between NATO allies and IP4 partners.
All in all, the presidential office said that the core concept of this trip is to strengthen South Korea's security through global cooperation. In fact, an official said that there will be an opportunity for just the IP4 members to send a message to Russia and North Korea to showcase the solidarity in the region. While the possibility of a trilateral summit between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo to follow up on the Camp David summit was raised, an official at the presidential office said that while it is open to all possibilities, it won't focus overwhelmingly on arranging one. In fact, the schedule is packed for this trip, and there are still opportunities for a summit throughout the rest of the year. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Then how exactly will Seoul serve its role of sustaining global security, especially with the alignment of Russia and North Korea seen in recent weeks? Our Oh Soo-young spoke with a former U.S. national security official, Victor Cha.
South Korea is emerging as a vital player in global security as President Yoon takes, quote, courageous steps for peace and democracy amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Moscow's military collaboration with North Korea. That's according to Victor Cha, Senior Vice President for Asia at the Center of Strategic and International Studies. Speaking to Arirang News ahead of the NATO Summit this week, Cha spotlighted the role of South Korea in global security as the country was invited to the annual meeting for the third consecutive year. The focus of the three-day meeting in Washington, D.C. would inevitably be Ukraine. But more broadly, countries will address the strengthening alignment between authoritarian powers like Russia, North Korea, China and Iran, which blur the boundaries between Indo-Pacific and transatlantic security. NATO and its four Indo-Pacific partners, South Korea, Japan, Australia and New Zealand, plan to adopt a strong statement against Moscow's treaty with North Korea to aid each other militarily in the face of aggression.
So I think it's very clearly a direct threat in Europe because this collaboration is allowing Putin to use ammunition at very high rates on cities and civilians in Ukraine, as well as on the battlefield. This NATO summit, I think more than any other, will show how the two security theaters are connected. So just as allies in Asia like Japan and Korea have been helping to defend Ukraine, European partners will have to be critical supporters of peacetime deterrence in the Taiwan Strait, on the Korean Peninsula, in the South China Sea.
Cha said the IP4 countries and the G7 bloc could help bolster intelligence sharing and slap additional sanctions on Russia and North Korea, given the futility of such efforts in the UN Security Council, where Beijing and Moscow hold veto power. While there are no plans for a three-way meeting between the leaders of South Korea, the US and Japan during the NATO summit, Yoon's office said Friday that it is open to all possibilities. Cha emphasized the need for a trilateral collective defense declaration against the Russia-North Korea axis.
I would hope that they make some sort of collective defense declaration, that the security of one is tied to the security of all. This is something that the United States has wanted the three allies to do for quite some time. For domestic political reasons, it's been difficult. But what happened between Putin and Kim really is kind of a clarifying moment in terms of geopolitics and geostrategy, and the allies need to assemble in response to that.
Going forward, as South Korea's role grows in global security, Cha acknowledged the need for bipartisan support for Yoon's foreign policy to become a responsible global actor that stands up for freedom, democracy and human rights.
If Russia wins the war in Ukraine, and if China takes over Taiwan, neither of those things are good for South Korea. What we often like to say, and I don't know how true it is anymore, is that domestic politics stops at the water's edge, meaning that as much as political parties fight at home, once they're abroad, they're united. So obviously, it would be nice to see bipartisan support for South Korea's foreign policy.
He said Seoul is gaining recognition for its humanitarian assistance and wartime support for Ukraine and its plans to aid Kyiv in reconstructing the country.
So this really is Korea stepping out on a global stage. It's welcomed, I would say, by every country in the world to see Korea, the 12th largest economy in the world, playing this very important role. So I expect when Yoon goes to the NATO summit, I suspect he'll get a lot of respect from the European leaders for what he's been doing in Europe to help European security in defense of democracy. I think he'll get a lot of credit for that, and he deserves it. He's doing things that are pretty courageous. They're not popular domestically, but they appear to be things that he believes in, and that's what leaders do.
As a guest speaker at the NATO Public Forum, the South Korean leader is to express Seoul's commitment to leading efforts for peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and Europe as a key member of the free world. He is also expected to issue a strong warning about the growing alignment of Russia and North Korea and seek security cooperation on a global scale. 오수영, Arirang News.
The world's largest multinational naval exercise, RIMPAC, is back in Hawaii. And this year, South Korea is taking on a special leadership task, showing off its Navy's upgraded status. Here's our defense correspondent, Choi Min-jung at Pearl Harbor.
The Rim of the Pacific exercise, the world's largest international maritime drill, is currently underway in Hawaii. 29 nations, 40 surface ships, 3 submarines, over 150 aircraft, and more than 25,000 personnel are training in and around the Hawaiian Islands until August 1st. Hosted by the U.S. Third Fleet, the biennial RIMPAC exercise began in 1971 to ensure the safety and security of the world's oceans. RIMPAC 2024 is being held under the theme Partners, Integrated and Prepared. The aim is to build relationships, enhance interoperability, and contribute to peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. Taking part in this maritime exercise for the 18th time is South Korea. Around 840 sailors and Marines from South Korea arrived in Hawaii last month. The country deployed 2 guided missile destroyers, the Chunmugung Isunshin and Yulgog-i, as well as the Cheonjabong tank landing ship and the Ibomseok submarine. And for the very first time, a South Korean commander is serving as RIMPAC's Deputy Combined Force Maritime Component Commander.
I am successfully carrying out my duties as Deputy Commander of the Combined Forces Maritime Component Command in RIMPAC 2024. Through this exercise, we will raise the status of South Korea's Navy by improving Joint Force Command and performance capabilities.
The commander of U.S. Carrier Strike Group 1, which includes the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier the Carl Vinson, says South Korea's leadership role in RIMPAC sets another great example of interoperability.
Of course, very significant leadership by Captain Moon as the Deputy SIFMIC Commander to help direct all of our naval forces, not just my task force, but the amphibious forces, the maritime patrol forces, and everybody participating in the exercise. So a very significant opportunity, and great to see the Republic of Korea in that position.
Visitors from around the world came to Pearl Harbor to tour ships from different parts of the world. Almost 5,000 visited South Korea's vessels.
I always see the ship of Republic of Korea on the Instagram page, and I always admire that. And it's so good to be here in person today and to learn about the history and to be on the ship that is been at RIMPAC since 1990.
South Korea will be taking part in various drills until July 28th. Choi Min-dang, Arirang News, Hawaii.
A coalition of left-wing parties is projected to win the most seats in the French parliament after a second round of voting on Sunday. The surprise results come, though, despite far-right parties' strong showing in the first round. Lee Seung-jae reports.
The first round of the French parliamentary elections on June 30th saw the far-right National Rally win 33.2% of the vote, while a coalition of left-wing parties, the New Popular Front, finished second. The first round also saw French President Emmanuel Macron's Ensemble Alliance finish third. However, with no majority win, voters cast their ballots in a runoff on Sunday, which saw a very different result. According to projections, the left-wing coalition, the New Popular Front, is projected to win between 171 and 187 seats in the National Assembly, making it the largest party. Macron's centralist Ensemble Alliance recovered strongly and is projected to win between 152 and 163 seats. All while Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally is expected to win between 134 and 152 seats. However, France may still be facing some uncertainties as no party won an absolute majority. This would put the country's parliament in political limbo with no clear path to forming a new government. It may be all the more crucial as France is just mere days away from a major NATO summit in Washington and just 3 weeks ahead of the Paris Summer Olympic Games. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, long considered Macron's protege, announced he would resign from his post on Monday morning. In what seems to be a veiled swipe at Macron's decision to call for a snap election, Attal said he didn't choose for the French parliament to be dissolved. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
So France's left-wing New Popular Front is projected to finish ahead of Marine Le Pen's far-right party in the parliamentary elections. Then what lies ahead for France now? We're joined by Professor Mason Richie again. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So Professor Richie, let's get to the point. What's behind the surprise second round result?
Sure. So the main reason really comes down to the way that French legislative politics works. It's a two-round election system. In the first round, people, as we say, vote with their heart, and in the second round, they vote with their head. And so in between the first and the second round, the center-right Macronist collection of parties and a diverse coalition of center-left and even in some respects far left-leaning parties mostly backed out of races where their respective parties finished third in the first round vote. This was the case in about 220 electoral districts. So essentially, this ended up forcing a choice on French voters to either vote for the far right, and that is to say the Rassemblement National, or to choose, in some cases, to vote for a party that people would prefer not to vote for, a party on the left or a party on the right, where traditionally they might not have supported that. So this centrist dam ultimately held against the resurgence in the far right. So, basically what happened is a lot of France's Guillaumes and Céciles woke up and had their croissant and their café au lait, and they went out and they voted for a left party or a center-right party that they might not otherwise have voted for. I'll note also that, we've sort of seen in part, I think, a resurgence of the left a little bit in France. This diverse coalition consisting of three parties, sort of major parties, France Unbowed, the Socialists, and the Eco Party, consolidated what is otherwise a sort of fractured left in between the first and second rounds and agreed to work together. And this, I think, marks a sort of resurgence and at least in some ways, a cooperative spirit on the left that was almost dead in 2017 and up through 2022.
Right, and we are still waiting for the full results to come out. But a projection shows that the far-right National Rallies are looking to come a close third in between 132 and 152 seats. Isn't this still a great achievement for the party?
Yes, of course. I mean, the main takeaway in France, both from the European elections and now from the snap legislative elections that Macron called and the results that we've seen in the first and second round, is that at the end of the day, France, has tilted dramatically more to the far right over the last 10 years. So if we look at what happened, for instance, in the 2017 legislative elections, that year, the National Rally got a grand total of 7 seats in the National Assembly. In 2022, after the first round, the projections, had them at somewhere between 35 and 55. They ended up with 89. So there's been growth already taking place between 2017 and 2022. And now in this snap election, the sort of median number of seats that they're expected to get is somewhere around 140 to 145. So obviously that's a dramatic growth, a 20-fold growth, essentially, from their results in 2017. And we've seen both in the European election and in the first round of these legislative elections that there's somewhere between 25 and 30% of the French population that is more or less in support of the anti-immigration, anti-Europe, nationalist populist program that the National Rally wants to put into effect in France.
Well, Macron's gambles have kept the far right out of power, meaning he avoided the worst. But it doesn't mean Macron is in his safest place anymore, or is he?
No, not at all. He got a lot of criticism, deservedly so, for, I think, a rash decision to dissolve the National Assembly the way that he did. And you just mentioned in your spot before me that, his current Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, took a sort of veiled swipe at him for having made this decision. I would say, to some degree, the outcome of this is a little bit like a student in math class who gets the right answer, but it doesn't have the logic in the operations to get there, right? They sort of lucked into a correct answer. He did end up pushing back in some respects the narrative of a far right majority in France, because indeed that did not come to pass in this legislative election. And as they call the Republican Front, or the dam against the far right resurgence, held. So in that sense, his gamble paid off. But he could have done this, I think, a better way. And the better way would, of course, to have taken the lesson of the European elections, and instead of calling a snap election, to have worked together in the last legislative assembly to answer the problems that France is facing, rather than taking this massive gamble. And of course, he comes out of this himself and his party significantly weakened, and in a situation where the legislative politics and the formation of a cabinet and the nomination of a new prime minister is going to prove to be exceptionally difficult.
Definitely. All right, Professor Richie, thank you as always for your insights. And again, this morning, we appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
The Korean Football Association on Sunday named Ulsan HDFC's Myung-bo the new head coach of the men's national football team. After months of running with an interim head coach in place, the national team has now have a permanent boss following the ousting of former head coach Jurgen Klinsmann. The KFA said that its technical director Im Sang will hold a press conference on the appointment on Monday. Hong led his K-League 1 squad to 2 league titles in the past 2 years and coached the men's national football team previously from 2013 to 2014. His brief tenure ended with a group stage exit at the 2014 FIFA World Cup in Brazil.
Good morning, I'm Kim Seong, and this is The World Now. U.S. President Joe Biden continued to campaign in Pennsylvania on Sunday as Democratic lawmakers debated the future of his candidacy following a primetime television interview on Friday that further fueled uncertainty. Biden attended 2 campaign events in the key swing state of Pennsylvania on Sunday, while fellow ranking Democrats convened a meeting on Sunday afternoon led by House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries that reportedly included discussion on the future of Biden's candidacy. According to CBS, 4 of those at the meeting said that Biden should drop out, while other sources added that at least 3 expressed concerns for the Democratic turnout in November. Biden's primetime TV interview with ABC on Friday once again showed that visibly aged president struggling to answer questions, which exacerbated concerns following last week's poor debate performance against Donald Trump. California Representative Adam Schiff said on Sunday that he blames Biden's age for his devastating performance, urging him to seek advice from his team with distance and objectivity and decide himself whether he is the right Democratic candidate. Now to Gaza, where an Israeli airstrike on a church-run school killed 4 people on Sunday, including a senior Hamas-appointed government official. According to Hamas sources, on the same day, Ihab al-Hussein, the deputy minister of labor, was killed at the Holy Family School in the west of Gaza City, where a large number of people were taking shelter. The Israel Defense Forces said it carried out a strike on the area of a school where they say terrorists were operating and hiding. Israel has targeted and killed others from the Hamas administration in the past 9 months of war, including the deputy culture minister, senior police officers, and the deputy speaker of the council. An Israeli strike against UNRWA school in Gaza on Saturday killed at least 16 people. In Iran's presidential race, moderate candidate Masoud Pezeshkian has won the country's runoff vote. He beat hardline former nuclear negotiator Saeed Jalili. The result was announced by country's Interior Ministry on Saturday. Pezeshkian, who is seen as a centrist, reform-minded candidate, won some 16.4 million votes of around 30 million votes cast, while Jalili received some 13.5 million, according to the official count. Pezeshkian said on Saturday that his victory will usher in a new chapter for the country. While the position of president in Iran has minimal authority in making policy decisions, the president will closely involved in selecting the successor to Iran's 85-year-old supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Spain's annual festival of San Fermín began as the clock struck midnight on July 7th, with thousands gathered in the Pamplona's main square. The San Fermín crowd, dressed in traditional white outfits and red scarves, waited until noon on Sunday for the start of the famous running of the bulls. The runs showcase 6 purpose-bred fighting bulls weighing between 500 and 630 kilograms, chasing runners through the narrow streets of Pamplona's Old Quarter over an 800-meter stretch. According to officials, medical reports indicated 6 injuries, including 1 due to goring, with injured participants transported to hospital.
Good morning. Heavy monsoon rain is forecast to pound down on many parts of Korea. Right now, the central region's Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces are seeing downpours. And throughout the day, the capital area in Gyeongsang-pukdo province could see up to 120 millimeters of torrential rain lashing down. So rain alerts in central regions could expand to more parts of the country, and that's including here in Seoul. Meanwhile, Chungcheongdo and Gyeongsang-pukdo provinces are under caution, the 3rd highest on the landslide alerts 4-tier scale. Now, temperature-wise, Seoul gets up to 27, but many southern provinces are under heat advisories. Daegu had a tropical night and will see a high of 31 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Busan and nearby areas will see spotty to no rain today, but Jeju will be under sunny skies this afternoon at a high of 34 degrees. Now, we are expecting frequent monsoon rain this week across Korea. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day and Arirang. Have a wonderful start to the week.